The story begins with Isaac von Goethe sitting at the dinner table while the servants celebrate him receiving a recommendation letter to the Royal Academy at only 10 years old. The maids prepare a huge feast, and one servant even brings Isaac a gift, saying his son survived thanks to Isaac's medicine. Isaac accepts it politely. Soon, his younger brother Jonas arrives and plays a song for him, making the moment feel peaceful. But suddenly, Isaac wakes up in bed and realizes it was all just a dream. Those happy days are gone. A servant named Lucas enters and asks if Isaac had another nightmare. Isaac says he dreamed about the past from 20 years ago. Lucas tells him to stop worrying, eat his food, and not skip sword training again. We then learn what happened back then. When Isaac was 10 and preparing to enter the academy, he caught a strange illness that lasted for months. A scholar from the Magic Tower later discovered Isaac had a special constitution. His mana circulation was unstable and violent. Eventually, his mana spiraled out of control, causing a massive explosion that harmed many people. And the mana bursts kept happening without warning. Even Jonas got hurt. Fearing more damage, Count Goethe locked Isaac deep inside the basement where nobody could reach him. Back in the present, Isaac notices Lucas coughing and realizes it's mana poisoning from staying near him too long. Isaac tells him to rest, but Lucas refuses, saying nobody else would take care of him since bro literally has no friends. Isaac warns him that staying close could kill him and sends him away to meditate. Later, Isaac remembers the painful truth. Lucas eventually died because of the mana poisoning, and Isaac blamed himself for it. After that, he completely shut himself away underground. Years pass, and Isaac spends his entire life studying magic to overcome his condition. After decades of research, he finally finds a solution at the age of 71. Then Jonas suddenly visits him. During their talk, Isaac apologizes for hurting him in the past. Jonas reveals that despite everything, their family hated Isaac, missed him, and still loved him at the same time. He then says he wants to see Isaac's face one last time. Isaac is confused until Jonas explains that during a war, a gate opened and monsters from another world invaded. When Isaac finally opens the basement door, he finds Jonas dead from severe injuries. Crying, Isaac steps outside and sees the entire palace destroyed. After burying his brother, Isaac finally succeeds in overcoming his special constitution. But standing alone in the ruined world, he can only wonder if things would have changed if he had been just a little faster. As Isaac lies on the ground, he suddenly hears someone calling for him to wake up. A moment later, he jolts awake in his bed. A servant named Hans stands nearby, telling him to get up because it is already noon. Isaac is completely stunned and cannot process what is happening. For a second, he even wonders if his life is flashing before his eyes as he dies. Isaac slowly gets out of bed and looks outside the window. There, he sees his younger brother Jonas happily playing in the garden. The moment Isaac sees him alive and well, his eyes widen in shock. This is not a dream. He has truly returned to the past. The scene then shifts to another room where several maids are cleaning up the aftermath of Isaac's mana burst. As they work, they complain about how Isaac destroyed the room again and put everyone's lives in danger. Hearing them talk like that, Hans gets frustrated and immediately scolds them for speaking nonsense. But Isaac stops him. Calmly, he admits that the maids are not wrong. He even tells Hans that he should stop coming to visit him too, since Hans was hurt today because of him. Hans refuses to accept that. He tells Isaac not to worry because he genuinely cares about him. Right now, Isaac is simply going through a difficult time, and once it passes, everything will be fine. Hans says that is just how life works. The painful part is that Hans always spoke to Isaac with a smile like this, yet in the future, he would eventually lose his life in one of Isaac's mana bursts. One after another, the people who cared for Isaac all died because of his special constitution. Bro really carried guilt for an entire lifetime. Back in the present, Isaac quietly realizes that if this situation is truly real, then he cannot allow the same future to happen again. With a cold expression, he tells Hans to leave his room and disappear from his sight immediately. Hearing that, Hans is visibly shaken but quietly leaves without arguing. Isaac convinces himself this is the correct choice because staying close to him only puts people in danger. Before leaving, however, Hans turns back and tells Isaac not to shoulder everything alone. Sometimes it is okay to trust others too. After Hans leaves, Isaac suddenly slaps himself across the face. The pain confirms it. This is reality. Isaac then wonders how he even died before, but quickly pushes the thought aside. Whether this is a dream or reality no longer matters. What matters now is preventing another mana burst from ever happening again. Back in the past, there was someone who suffered from the same special constitution as Isaac. His name was Zeke von Goethe, Isaac's great-great-grandfather. Zeke reached a level no human had ever achieved before, becoming a 10th-class mage. During the years Isaac spent underground, he learned about Zeke through the ancestral records passed down by Count Goethe. After decades of research, Isaac finally discovered a method to overcome the special constitution, and the key to it all was this very rune stone. This single pattern, carved into a mana stone, creates a rune stone capable of changing mana flow itself. Isaac looks at his younger hands and realizes they no longer tremble from old age. Creating it now is far easier than before. To stop the side effects of his constitution, the mana vessel inside his body must endure the endless flow of mana. The problem is that Isaac's mana moves far too violently for the vessel to withstand. A normal person would die the moment their vessel shattered, but Isaac's vessel strangely restores itself every time as if nothing happened. That is why his mana could explode over and over again. The runestone works by intentionally damaging the mana pathways. Continuous pressure is applied to the damaged area, forcing entirely new pathways to form. In simple terms, it spreads the mana shock across multiple routes instead of overloading one vessel. The success rate, however, is extremely low. Isaac barely succeeded in his previous life right before dying, and that tiny flame he created back then was proof the theory worked. Now Isaac stares at the rune stone and wonders if it will succeed this time too. The moment he activates it, a fire spell bursts out with overwhelming power. But suddenly, the mana connection begins to collapse. Just when it seems like failure, the runestone activates properly. Isaac immediately realizes his mana pathways have increased to 3. Each pathway has a different size and property, allowing him to cast 3 spells simultaneously. Isaac cannot believe it actually worked. Still, he quickly reminds himself that this is not his true goal. 3 pathways are nowhere near enough to completely stop the mana bursts. To survive, he needs to continuously use magic and expand the number of pathways while reducing the burden on his mana vessel. Until then, he cannot allow anyone to stay close to him. Later that evening, Hans returns to Isaac's room, carrying dinner. Isaac immediately tells him to leave, but Hans ignores him and insists on feeding him anyway. Isaac then asks how old he is right now, and Hans replies that he is 12 years old. As Isaac eats the bread, he realizes it has been a very long time since he tasted fresh food like this. He then notices that the nanny is missing today and asks where she went. Hans explains that her son became seriously ill, so she returned home to care for him. He also mentions that many children in the village are suffering from the same sickness. The moment Isaac hears that, his expression darkens. He instantly remembers the tragedy known as the Black Goose Village mass incident. In the previous timeline, the nanny lost her son during that disaster and carried that grief until the day she died. Isaac does not want to witness that future again. Trying to remember the cause of the illness, Isaac suddenly asks Hans what kind of monsters were recently subjugated near the village. The scene then shifts to late at night in the forest, where Isaac quietly moves through the darkness before finally arriving at Black Goose Village. We then flash back to earlier, when Hans explained the details about a monster that had recently been hunted near the village. Hans says he never saw it properly himself, but people from the Magic Tower once came to purchase the remains for research. Back then, he managed to catch a glimpse of the creature. According to him, it looked like a giant spider covered in silver fur. The moment Isaac hears that description, he immediately realizes what it is. If Hans is correct, then the monster is definitely a winter spider. These creatures are not especially powerful on their own, but their terrifying breeding rate allows them to form massive swarms. The real danger, however, is the mana they emit. When humans are exposed to highly concentrated mana for long periods, they develop mana poisoning, a condition that slowly destroys the body like a deadly toxin. As Isaac searches through the forest collecting herbs, he concludes that the children in the village must have been poisoned by the mana emitted from the winter spiders. Even while exhausted, Isaac continues gathering ingredients because he knows that in this era, knowledge about manna poisoning is still extremely limited. After collecting enough herbs, Isaac finally stops and examines what he gathered. This should be enough to temporarily relieve the children's symptoms. But he also knows the medicine is only a short-term solution. If the winter spiders are not completely eradicated, the illness will simply return again. Technically, Isaac could ask his parents for help, but his father is stationed at the border fortress, while his mother is traveling across the continent searching for a cure to Isaac's special constitution. If he waits for them, Hinder's life could once again end in tragedy. Isaac refuses to let that happen a second time. The scene then shifts to the nanny's house, where she is desperately taking care of her sick son. Suddenly, the front door opens, and the nanny is shocked to see Isaac standing there in the middle of the night. Isaac looks completely exhausted, and she quickly rushes over to support him while asking what happened. She even wonders if something went wrong back at the estate. Isaac calmly explains that she has not come to work for several days, so he came to check on her himself. As they enter the house, the nanny explains that her son Hinder has pneumonia and worries that Isaac could catch it too. Isaac covers his face and reassures her that he will be fine. He then hands her the herbs he collected and explains exactly how to prepare them. She needs to mash the herbs together, boil them twice in a pot, let the mixture cool down, and then feed it to her son. After that, Isaac walks over to examine Hinder personally. The moment he sees the boy's condition, Isaac becomes certain that this is manna poisoning. Hinder slowly wakes up and weakly begs Isaac not to fire his mother. He explains that she only missed work because she stayed home to care for him. Hearing this, Isaac gently tells him not to worry because he has no intention of firing her. In fact, he says the nanny is the one who makes the best fresh bread in the estate, so Hinder should focus entirely on recovering. Later that day, the village chief guides Isaac to the abandoned mine he had been searching for. Once they arrive, Isaac hands the man a gold coin and tells him he can leave the rest to him. Before departing, the chief warns Isaac to be careful because several people have disappeared around the area before. Isaac thanks him for the warning. As he looks toward the cave entrance, Isaac thinks to himself that winter spiders prefer limestone caves. Since this is the only limestone cave nearby, there is a very high chance this place is their nest. Before entering, Isaac decides to make preparations. By opening new pathways in his mana circuit earlier, he became capable of casting 3 spells simultaneously. Thanks to that, he can now output power comparable to a second-class mage. But there is still a serious limit. If he pushes himself too far, his mana vessel could shatter again. And since Isaac has no idea how many spiders are hiding inside the cave, he can't use magic recklessly. That is why he gathered another herb called frost belladonna. Normally, its berries are diluted and used as anesthetic medicine, but to winter spiders, it acts as a deadly poison. Isaac even finds it ironic that these creatures live in the exact same habitat as their natural weakness. Nature was really setting them up for failure. The next day, Isaac finishes collecting a large amount of frost belladonna. With that, his preparations are finally complete. He already created plenty of rune stones back at the estate, so now there is only one thing left to do. Isaac enters the cave and carefully looks around the dark passageways. As he walks deeper underground, he quietly mutters that dying in a place like this would truly be meaningless. After searching for a while, he spots a rope staircase leading further down. By the time Isaac finally reaches the bottom, he is completely exhausted. But the moment he lifts his head and looks ahead, he immediately realizes he found the right place. The winter spider nest. Suddenly, a loud roar echoes through the cave. One of the spiders appears, and Isaac instantly prepares his magic before striking it with a fire spell. Isaac knows that winter spiders fear fire, so for now he still has the advantage. Without wasting another second, Isaac quickly prepares the frost belladonna herbs before the spiders can fully swarm him. He throws the herbs forward and ignites them with his fire magic. Thick smoke rapidly spreads throughout the cave as Isaac stares into the darkness and calmly says, "Let the hunt begin." As Isaac sits quietly with his face covered, he looks around and realizes the frost belladonna smoke is working perfectly. Since he cannot directly feed poison to the winter spiders, he burns the herbs instead and lets the smoke spread through the cave. Slowly but surely, the spiders begin inhaling the toxic fumes. Of course, Isaac is not completely safe from it either. That is why he wrapped a wet handkerchief around his face to act as a basic filter, while using mana to purify the remaining poison entering his body. At the same time, Isaac forms a fireball, compresses it tightly, and maintains phase shift to stay alert. Purification magic, fire magic, and phase shifting all at once. Thanks to his 3 mana circuits, Isaac can now cast 3 spells simultaneously, a technique known as multi-circuit. Because of that, he is barely able to hold his ground long enough for the poison to weaken the spiders. Once the winter spiders start slowing down, Isaac immediately attacks them with fire magic. As he pushes deeper into the cave, however, he notices something strange. All the spiders are running toward the same direction. Isaac quickly realizes there must be water nearby, and the creatures are trying to escape the poisonous smoke. Not wanting to drag this fight out any longer, Isaac rushes after them, deciding to finish things before his own body reaches its limit. But as he moves deeper underground, he suddenly feels the temperature around him drop sharply. Isaac did not expect the cave to become cold enough for ice to form. Then he looks around and freezes in shock. The entire area is filled with winter spider eggs. And before he can even react, a massive creature suddenly crawls forward from the darkness. This spider is nearly twice the size of the others. Isaac instantly turns and runs the other way after realizing what it is. The winter spider queen. Unlike the smaller spiders, the queen possesses fire resistance and can exhale freezing frost. That is the exact reason these monsters are called winter spiders in the first place. Bro really walked into the final boss room without realizing it. The queen immediately attacks, forcing Isaac to quickly get back on his feet and fire a spell directly at it. But the spider tanks the hit head-on, and the flames fail to deal any real damage. Still, Isaac notices something important. The queen's movements are not especially agile. Unfortunately, Isaac himself is also approaching his limit. He is only 12 years old, has almost no combat experience, stayed awake all night, and spent the entire day casting magic nonstop. At this point, his body is screaming for rest. Right then, Isaac suddenly remembers the warm bread the nanny used to make for him. In this cold northern region where wheat barely grows, the only reason Isaac could eat soft wheat bread was because of her. Since Isaac was an incredibly picky eater who hated almost everything, the nanny traveled to a distant city every single week just to buy high-quality wheat for him. Thinking about that, Isaac smiles faintly and says that once he gets back, he is going to ask the nanny to make him as much bread as possible. Using that thought to push himself forward, Isaac grabs a nearby shovel and prepares to face the queen directly. He suddenly throws his bag toward the spider. The queen instantly freezes it solid with frost breath and charges straight at him. But that was exactly what Isaac wanted. He quickly rushes in from the side and lands a heavy strike directly onto the spider's face. Without wasting a second, Isaac follows up with incredible speed and smashes one of the spider's legs, forcing the massive creature to collapse to the ground. Even so, Isaac knows he still cannot let his guard down. He lacks the precision needed to kill the monster cleanly, and he also does not have enough mana left to continuously fire powerful spells. Even if he gets lucky with a direct hit, normal fire magic is not enough to fatally wound a creature with natural fire resistance. Realizing this, Isaac abandons long-range combat altogether. Instead, he decides to compress his fireball spell far beyond its normal limit. As the mana condenses further and further, the color of the flames gradually changes into blue. The next moment, Isaac launches the spell directly at the queen spider. The attack lands perfectly, and this time the strike is powerful enough to finally bring the monster down. Completely exhausted, Isaac collapses onto the ground the moment the battle ends. One of his rune stones slips from his hand and falls beside him. The scene then shifts to a small house where Isaac slowly wakes up and hears Hans and the nanny talking nearby. As he regains consciousness, Isaac remembers everything that happened. After defeating the winter spider queen, he collapsed and hit his head on the ground. Fortunately, he regained consciousness shortly after, barely managed to escape the abandoned mine, and somehow made his way back to the village. The moment he ran into Hans wandering near the village entrance, his body finally gave out. Bro was running entirely on survival mode at that point. The nanny then explains to Hans that she followed Isaac's instructions exactly, and now Hinder is completely cured. Hearing this, Hans smiles and says that helping others is simply the kind of person Isaac has always been. As Isaac gets up, both Hans and the nanny are relieved to see him awake. Isaac asks how long he was asleep, and Hans tells him it has been about half a day. He then asks how Isaac is feeling. Isaac calmly replies that he is fine. Still worried, the nanny asks why Isaac would go somewhere so dangerous all by himself. Isaac casually explains that he simply slipped while gathering herbs nearby. He deliberately avoids mentioning the part where he fought and defeated the Winter Spider Queen alone. Isaac then asks about Hinder's condition. The nanny happily explains that thanks to the herbs Isaac provided, not only Hinder but the other sick children in the village are also recovering well. Hearing this, Isaac quietly feels relieved. At the same time, he decides it is better to keep mana poisoning a secret. If the higher-ups learn about it, scholars from the Magic Tower would inevitably get involved, and it would become a massive headache if the Winter Spider remains inside the abandoned mine were discovered. Curious, the nanny asks Isaac how he even knew about those herbs. Isaac simply replies that he read about them in a book. After that, Isaac tells Hans that it is time to leave. Hans points out that it is snowing heavily outside, but Isaac explains that if word gets out that he left the estate, Hans will be the one blamed for it. Hans immediately understands the situation. Before they leave, the nanny gives them fresh fruits, explaining that the villagers wanted Isaac to have them as thanks for helping save their children. Isaac then tells the nanny to take another week off because it will be easier for her to return to work once Hinder fully recovers. The nanny hesitates, pointing out that the head butler will not simply overlook it. But Isaac tells her not to worry about that. Then he suddenly asks her to make some apple jam using the fruits. Confused, the nanny asks why. Isaac smiles and says it is to eat together with fresh wheat bread on the day she returns to work. Hearing that, the nanny cannot help but smile warmly. Bro already knew exactly what meal he wanted after almost dying in a spider cave. The next day at the palace, Isaac is seen running around the estate grounds. A week has passed since the Winter Spider incident, and during that time, his mana vessel has changed once again. His 3 mana circuits increased to 4, further stabilizing his mana flow. Now, Isaac can also cast 4 spells simultaneously. Fighting the Winter Spiders and pushing himself to the brink clearly helped, but Isaac realizes that consistently training his body every day contributed just as much. Using magic is not simply about casting spells. It requires comprehension, calculations, and intuition, all of which consume enormous mental energy. And when the body collapses, the mind follows soon after. Mental strength also depends heavily on physical stamina. Isaac finally understands why he reached his limit so quickly inside the abandoned mine. His body was simply too weak and untrained. Back in his previous life, Lucas used to constantly train Isaac's stamina for exactly this reason. At that moment, the head butler informs Isaac that it is time for his regular medical checkup. Soon, the family doctor arrives and greets him. This physician was personally assigned by Count Gerda and is considered the most successful doctor in the neighboring territory. Even so, not even he fully understands Isaac's special constitution. After examining him, the doctor remarks that Isaac seems healthier than ever and that there are no major issues today. Isaac quietly thinks the doctor is making conclusions however he pleases. The doctor then gives Isaac a new potion called Panacea. According to common belief, the potion stabilizes the flow of mana. Seeing it, Isaac realizes just how much effort his father invested into obtaining high-quality medicine for him. The name Panacea literally means cure-all in the common tongue. Some people use it as a stimulant, while soldiers often use it as a healing potion. However, Isaac knows the truth. The belief that it stabilizes mana came from a mistranslation of ancient language texts. Its real effect is actually stimulating mana flow. In other words, for the old Isaac whose mana was completely unstable, this potion was basically poison. But for Isaac's current condition, things are different. If he uses it correctly, it could act as a catalyst to help increase his mana circuits even further. After the doctor leaves, head butler Schiller quietly stares at Isaac. Isaac asks what the problem is, and Schiller points out that Isaac seems unusually calm today. Normally, Isaac would throw tantrums whenever someone examined him. Thanks to those outbursts, almost every doctor eventually refused to continue treating him. Isaac jokingly asks if he should have thrown a fit instead. Schiller then mentions that he heard Isaac cured the children in the village. Isaac is immediately stunned and asks how he found out. Schiller calmly replies that Hans informed him. He then warns Isaac that if news of this becomes public, the advisory committee will not stay quiet. Because of that, Schiller decided to let the matter slide this time. But from now on, Isaac should be more careful. Hearing this, Isaac quietly reflects on how distant Schiller always seemed in the past. To Isaac, Schiller had always been a dry and emotionless old man who kept everyone at arm's length. But then, to Isaac's surprise, Schiller adds that if Isaac absolutely cannot refrain himself in the future, he should at least discuss it with him first. Isaac is genuinely caught off guard by those words. He suddenly remembers what Jonas said before dying in the previous timeline. Schiller had faithfully served the Goethe family since the previous patriarch and remained loyal until the entire household collapsed, eventually losing his own life alongside them. At that moment, Isaac realizes that beneath Schiller's cold exterior, the old butler truly cares far more than he shows. Isaac smiles softly and thanks Schiller for looking out for him. Schiller then asks if there is a particular reason Isaac has been training every day. Isaac explains that throughout history, every mage who reached 5th class or higher trained their body seriously. Since the body is what channels mana, it only makes sense for it to maintain a proper level of fitness. Schiller looks genuinely surprised hearing such mature reasoning from Isaac. Later that night, the scene shifts to Schiller's office. As he writes his report, he notes that the eldest young master successfully cured the children in the village of their pneumonia, and the verification has already been completed. Schiller further writes that because of Isaac's special constitution, it may be difficult for him to pursue magic in the future. However, he cautiously believes Isaac may possess talent as a scholar or alchemist instead. If that turns out to be true, Count Goethe would finally be able to worry a little less. While Schiller is deep in thought, a maid named Rosa suddenly rushes into the office looking panicked. She explains that several maids have recently disappeared without returning. She is unsure about Clara, but Annette has never taken a single day off in 3 years and would never vanish without reason. Rosa looks increasingly anxious as she says she is certain something terrible must have happened to her. The scene then shifts to the next day outside the estate, where several maids have gathered together, nervously discussing the recent disappearances. In only 2 months, 3 maids have vanished without a trace. Rosa especially looks worried about Annette, since she worked tirelessly to pay for her father's medicine. One of the servants suddenly lowers his voice and suggests something disturbing. Maybe dark magic is involved. Since the Goethe family is known for producing powerful mages, perhaps they have secretly been experimenting with forbidden magic to find a cure for Isaac. According to him, that might explain why the maids keep disappearing. Frustrated, Rosa immediately tells the servant to stop talking nonsense. But at that exact moment, Isaac overhears the conversation. With a calm smile, Isaac remarks that it is quite an interesting story. The servant instantly freezes after noticing Isaac standing there. Isaac then politely asks why he does not continue explaining everything in more detail. The scene shifts to Isaac's room, where the terrified servant explains the situation. 2 months ago, the first maid named Hilda disappeared. A few weeks later, Clara vanished as well. Then just this weekend, Annette never returned after going out shopping. As the servant explains everything, Isaac stares at him intensely and asks if he has any personal theories. Intimidated by Isaac's gaze, the servant nervously says he does not know anything. Isaac calmly tells him to be honest because he has no intention of punishing him. Even then, the servant hesitates. Isaac then directly asks if the servant thinks he is somehow responsible. The servant awkwardly admits that it probably was obvious. He explains that Hans constantly serves Isaac, yet he is always covered in bruises and injuries while regularly complaining about pain. Hearing that, Isaac's expression immediately darkens. The servant instantly realizes he said something he should not have. Then Isaac suddenly calls him by name. Bill. Completely stunned, Bill immediately apologizes and begs for mercy. But instead of punishing him, Isaac calmly says that if Bill wants to avoid trouble, then he can simply do some work for him instead. Later that night, Isaac quietly thinks over everything that happened. He remembers that after Hans and his maid passed away in the previous timeline, Rosa and Annette were the only maids who still volunteered to serve him. Back then, Isaac constantly pushed them away and told them to leave him alone. Yet despite his cold attitude, They continued encouraging him and begged him not to lose hope. At the time, their kindness only frustrated Isaac more. Then Isaac recalls a specific memory of Annette telling him that she understood his pain because her own father was seriously ill too. She told Isaac not to give up no matter how difficult things became. Thinking back on it now, Isaac realizes those words brought him comfort back then. He quietly regrets never asking her more about herself. At that moment, Bill enters the room with new information. Isaac immediately asks whether he discovered where the maids disappeared to. Bill confirms that he did. After asking around, he found people whose descriptions perfectly matched the missing maids. According to Bill, the culprits are slave traders. They lured desperate people by promising transportation to the prosperous southern regions. They offer mercenary protection from bandits and even promise legal freedom status once people arrive there. But in reality, they simply sell them into slavery. Hearing this, Isaac finally understands why the maids were deceived so easily. If they truly wanted to move south, they could have traveled there normally. But these offers specifically targeted people struggling financially and emotionally. Bill quietly thinks to himself that Isaac is still just a sheltered kid who knows nothing about the real world. He then asks if Isaac needs anything else from him. Isaac replies that there is one more thing he wants Bill to do, and this time he will make sure Bill gets properly compensated. Bill immediately agrees. The scene suddenly shifts again, and now both Isaac and Bill are locked inside a cage. It turns out they intentionally allowed themselves to get captured by the slave traders. Meanwhile, Isaac sits quietly in the back of the cage, smiling while holding a runed stone in his hand. Bill, on the other hand, is completely panicking. He keeps wondering how things even ended up like this. Sneaking Isaac out of the mansion went smoothly, and tracking down the broker connected to the missing maids was surprisingly easy too. But somehow, they both ended up captured themselves. And the worst part is that Isaac does not even look worried. Bill nervously asks what they are supposed to do now. Surely Isaac has some kind of plan, right? He tells Isaac to stop casually playing with the stone and actually do something. Isaac calmly replies that he intends to find Annette and the other missing maids first. Bill quickly asks if Isaac at least has a way to escape from the cage. Without another word, Isaac activates his spell and instantly destroys the steel bars, leaving Bill completely speechless. Bill quickly warns him that the place is built like a maze, and they could easily get lost or surrounded by armed bandits. Isaac casually asks if Bill really thinks he cannot handle something at that level. Then Isaac starts walking away while wishing Bill good luck escaping on his own. The moment Bill realizes Isaac is serious, he immediately begs Isaac to save him too. He promises he will obey absolutely anything Isaac says. Hearing Bill panic like this reminds Isaac of something from the previous timeline. The scene shifts to a memory where Count Gerda explains that Bill used to be a bandit. After Count Gerda defeated the criminal group, Bill survived by betraying his own organization and handing over information about them. However, Count Gerda ultimately could not forgive Bill for later betraying the Gerda household as well. Without hesitation, Count Gerda struck him down. Isaac quietly remarks that he still remembers that day clearly. As a former bandit familiar with the underground world, Bill was able to track the slave traders quickly using his old connections. And if Isaac remembers correctly, the same criminal organization once attempted to sell secret magic books illegally. They are also the very group responsible for abducting the maids. In the future, these criminals will continue expanding their influence throughout Gerda territory and harm countless people. And to Isaac, anyone capable of threatening his family must be eliminated before they ever get the chance. Isaac then pulls out a piece of paper and tells Bill that he will save him. But first, Bill must do something for him. The scene then shifts to the bandit leader. His true goal is revealed to be the use of black magic in an attempt to resurrect his dead father. The other bandits quietly keep their distance from him out of fear. After finishing his meal, the bandit leader leaves the room, ordering the others to clean up. But suddenly, the bandits hear strange noises outside. As they cautiously move to investigate, an eerie voice suddenly echoes through the area, making them freeze in fear. Then, to their complete shock, they discover their boss lying defeated on the ground. At that moment, Bill casually steps forward and asks the stunned bandits to bring him some water. The bandits instantly recognize him. Bill angrily thinks to himself that this entire mess is happening because of Isaac. The scene then shifts to a few moments earlier, when Isaac presented Bill with a magical contract. Isaac calmly explained the conditions one by one. First, Bill must obey Isaac unconditionally. Second, Bill cannot disclose any information related to Isaac. Third, if Bill violates any of those conditions, the penalty will be death. Bill is completely stunned hearing this and immediately asks what kind of insane terms those are. Isaac explains that Bill must sign the contract using mana for the magic to properly take effect. Bill instantly refuses and asks why he would ever agree to something like that. Right then, someone suddenly approaches to check on the prisoners. Seeing the danger, Isaac tells Bill to hurry because they do not have much time. If Bill wants to survive, then accepting the contract is his only option. Frustrated and cornered, Bill finally gives in and signs the contract. The moment the contract is completed, several bandits suddenly rush into the room and attack them. But before they can react, Isaac instantly defeats them with a single strike. Bill is left completely shocked after seeing Isaac casually use magic. As they continue moving through the hideout, Bill admits that this is his first time seeing someone use ice magic. Soon after, they spot more bandits blocking the path ahead. Bill then asks Isaac what he even needs in order to create ice. Isaac calmly tells him to guess. Bill answers that it has to be water. Isaac confirms he is correct. Whether it is moisture in the air or water gathered from puddles on the ground, he first has to shape the water into the desired form. After that comes compression, condensation, expansion, and evaporation. The spell has to pass through all 4 stages. Managing each step individually is easy enough for Isaac, but controlling all of them simultaneously is incredibly difficult. Just as the bandits notice them, Isaac finishes casting his spell and instantly takes one of them down in a single strike. Isaac quietly thinks to himself that without the Frost Mana Stone, he would never have bothered using ice magic at all. Even though the attribute itself is unpopular, Frost Mana Stones are extremely valuable academically and sell for high prices. In other words, Isaac managed to obtain something pretty valuable. Bill then asks why Isaac even bothers using such inconvenient magic if it is so uncommon. Isaac calmly explains that precisely because ice magic is unpopular, very few people understand how it works. And once the ice melts back into water, it leaves almost no evidence behind. That makes it perfect for stealth operations. Hearing that, Bill looks genuinely intimidated. Bro realized Isaac was way scarier than the bandits. Soon, even more enemies start appearing, but Isaac and Bill continue pushing forward while defeating them one after another. Isaac remarks that everything will be over once they eliminate the bandit leader. At that moment, the boss himself finally appears before them. His name is Nears. Bill immediately warns Isaac that Nears is an incredibly strong fighter. Hearing this, Isaac simply remarks that it saves him the trouble of tracking the leader down himself. Isaac quickly prepares an ice spell and launches an attack at Nears. But to Isaac's surprise, Nears actually manages to block the incoming strike. Bill is shocked seeing the sheer strength of the bandit leader. Watching him fight, Isaac suddenly asks if Nears is from the northern tribe. Nears immediately charges forward to attack them. Terrified, Bill instantly starts begging for forgiveness. But in the very next moment, Isaac appears behind Nears and defeats him with a single precise strike of ice magic. The fight ends so quickly that Bill can barely process what happened. After taking down Nears, Isaac calmly tells Bill that he is now the leader of the bandits. Isaac then says he already knows what he needs to do next. A few moments later, they finally locate the missing maids. Seeing Annette safe and alive, Isaac quietly reflects to himself that in this life, Annette will not lose anyone precious to her again.